Hi there, everyone. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you today from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here for a few days to attend a conference called Freedom Fest that has a lot of really interesting guest speakers. So over the course of the next few days, I'm going to go inside there and I'm going to ask some of them about their views on the movement to end the Federal Reserve. I'm curious as to your thoughts about right now. There seems to be some momentum with the movement to end the Fed. It's been picking up in Germany, other places around the world. People are starting to really get involved in this movement to end the Fed. Are you aware of the momentum that it's gaining lately?
Yeah, I think there is a growing movement, which is nice. In the 19th century, there was a lot of opposition to central banking. People understood that it's a scam, it's a racket, and a lot of behind the closed doors sort of robbery going on. Essentially, that's the essence of central banking.
I'm not familiar with the movement, but I'm all for it. The Federal Reserve, and for that matter, all these other central banks in the world, serve absolutely no useful purpose, and they should all be abolished.
Well, those are nice thoughts. I don't think it's going to happen. Governments love to have that little piggy bank called the Fed that can print down money. And so as long as we have debt in government, I think the central bank's going to be around. Now, if we got the Fed out of the way, I think it would be a very good thing. But I don't think it's realistic that's going to happen anytime soon.
The Fed has to be drastically changed. It's now in a position the more it fails, the more powerful it becomes, including, in effect, imposing taxes. It says it wants inflation, which is a tax. Janet Yellen, the head of the Fed, she says she wants an amount of inflation that will cost the typical American family an extra $1,000 a year and higher prices for food and fuel. Who gave the Fed the authority to impose taxes on the American people? The Fed should have only two tasks. One is to keep the dollar stable, fixed to gold, and two, to deal decisively with panics, which if the Fed does its job right, should happen about once every 100 years.
I think that as the results of this defunct banking system that we've had for the past 100 years, and especially as we've diverged from any type of reality or pinning, i.e. the complete and total obliteration of the gold standard, 40 years ago, as those systemic lies get more and more pressure put on them, they're collapsing more, and as they collapse more, the symptoms become worse, and as the symptoms become worse, the movement's going to grow.
Well, what sort of things do you think need to happen in order to bring that about? Some believe there's an inevitable crash coming to the Fed, and it'll just destroy itself.
Well, the important thing is that the Fed is not nearly as effective as it used to be, even in doing what it wants to do. For example, the last 5 years, it's tried desperately hard to manufacture a real inflation. They really wanted to gun prices up, and because they think that's the way to recover out of a recession. I mean, they're completely wrong about that, but they weren't able to achieve their aims. No matter how much money they pumped into the system, they were never able to get the hot money out on the street, which is a very interesting thing. It's like the essential mechanisms that used to make the Fed work well, they're not working very well anymore. Mainly that's because of the shadow banking system is so gigantic now that they just can't really control the money supply the way they once did.
Well, it's inconvenient not to use currency, because when you go to McDonald's, which I don't do, but they're not going to take anything but Federal Reserve notes. So it's problematical. I don't think we actually, well, my view is we don't really have to end the Fed. It's going to end itself. It's going to destroy the dollar as a currency. In fact, in the years to come, and I hate to sound so radical, but I think most of the world's currencies are going to blow up or dry up and blow away. So they'll end themselves. Now, well, they'll start new currencies and so forth, but I'm of the opinion that more and more people are going to start using gold as a store of value, and even day-to-day in a medium of exchange, as a medium of exchange.
Is gold the answer?
Yeah, well, I mean, gold's the answer to a lot of questions, but people should own gold, but not only gold. But we recommend people diversify, find the countries that have the most to gain from the collapse of the dollar. Right? There are going to be winners and losers. Americans are going to be the big losers, no question about that. But there are going to be winners. So you want to bet on the winners. You want to own assets in the countries that have a lot to gain. from the dollar's demise. Because right now, there are a lot of countries that are suffering because they have to prop up the dollar. They have to support the dollar. Their own people are suffering so that Americans can keep consuming things that they can't afford. Capital is being diverted from more productive uses abroad to prop up the U.S. government, to prop up the U.S. dollar. And so I think right now, this is a giant burden on a lot of people that will be lifted when they no longer have to support America's spending habit and our borrowing habit. So understand the way the world is going to change when the dollar is no longer the center of the financial universe, right? No longer the key currency.
If the Fed does come to its inevitable crash or the dollar crashes, what do you think is going to replace this system?
Well, I think before that happens, what you're going to see is we're going to do finally in a few years what we did for the first 180 years of the U.S.'s existence, and that is have a dollar linked to gold. Keep the politicians out.
So back to a gold-backed standard for the dollar?
Gold standard, yes. It's not perfect, but better than anything else out there.
Well, look, the important thing to bear in mind is that you have to produce more than you consume. That's how you grow in wealth. And when you produce more than you consume, you have the difference is savings. The problem is, well, what do you put those savings in? Now, if you're an American, dollars. I mean, that's what you put them in. But this is very foolish because you're putting your savings, your excess production, in a floating abstraction that has no intrinsic value. That's why I think more people are going to start going to gold.
Investors should realize that nobody is going to take care of them. They are on their own. And so cash is no longer risk-free. We encourage folks to take a diversified approach to something as mundane as cash. Gold is one tool that one can use in a toolbox, to use a term that Bernanke always used. But we are moving further and further away, unfortunately, from the gold standard. And so what happens is that we're living in a world that's less and less certain. Now, you can invest in that world, but you got to be more proactive in that. You can't just put your money under your pillow and think everything is going to be fine.
We advise Canadians to diversify abroad. Not to the United States, but looking to Asia and other parts of the world that are less closely connected to America.
It's looking like it's going towards an inevitable end, but what are some things that individuals can do, that people can do to get involved in the movement to end the Fed?
Well, I think the big thing is that they need to understand and learn how to communicate these ideas to other people who may feel the pain or might be interested already.
Have honest money, simplified tax code that people can actually understand, and have patients control health care again.
I think as an individual, you have to think about your own reserve standard. Don't trust your government to have reserves and manage them in your interest. If you have savings, well, create your own reserves, whatever that may mean for you. Gold is one thing, a basket of currencies it may be, or other investments to try to preserve purchasing power. But we have to get away from this notion that somehow a central authority, a supranational authority even, is going to come in and save us all, because we got the same problems everywhere in the world. Culturally, we deal with these problems differently in different parts of the world. That provides opportunities. But again, it's not that the IMF is going to come in and create this new currency that's going to be the new standard. The Europeans can't even agree within a single currency, so the Chinese and the Russians and the Germans are not going to agree on a new currency either. And so you're on your own, and you got to take that as a basis. And then once you realize that, I think it's much easier, because then say, all right, well, if I'm in charge, I might as well use some gold, use a little bit of currency, and then invest a little bit.
Back in 2008, when the world financial crisis really hit us, Satoshi Nakamoto is the pseudonymous inventor of Bitcoin, came out with a wonderful protocol that actually works as a money substitute for national monies. And he's shown us over the subsequent 5 years, and the progress of Bitcoin has shown us, that actually money can emerge from markets and be much, much better than national currencies, which are expensive and they violate your rights in many ways. And like I said earlier, all the operations occur behind closed doors. Satoshi set up his protocol to be exactly the opposite. Right. It's a very strict limit on supply, open source, so you always know what's going on, very low transactions fees to use the payment network. I really think that cryptocurrency is the new safe haven for the world. Maybe not yet, but I think that's where we're going.
The success rate of a fiat currency in all of human history is zero. and long term, 100% of them implode upon themselves. So how long will this one last? I'm not exactly sure, but unless this is unless gravity has ceased to exist for the current financial cabal and the dollar reserve system, then the pain will get worse and the movement will continue to grow, and there's nothing they can do but try and medicate the systems until finally the disease kills the body.
Well, it seems like we're moving in the right direction. The end of the Fed movements, the different ideas about how money can be operated outside of the central bank system. So I guess that's the good news, is that we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, and and you just barely touched on it, because there's so many other things that are happening. We're seeing even things like patent and copyright law challenged fundamentally by 3D printers. I guess you've looked at our 3D printer over there. Anybody can download a CAD file and print anything. Well, that's a very wicked weapon in a way against patents and copyrights and regulations generally. You can have the states now passing massive regulations, but nobody paying any attention to them because we can download CAD files and print whatever we want to. They can't control us in the end. There's no way.
It seems like global non-compliance. Everybody's just stepping out and saying, I don't want no part of the system anymore.
The communists used to say, a people united can never be defeated. I agree with that.
All right, man. Thanks very much for talking to us.
Okay, it's good to be here. Thank you so much.